The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 1 to 12. When Creator sets free, Jesus saw this great crowd. He went back up into the mountainside, sat down to teach the people. His followers came to him there, so he took a deep breath, opened his mouth, and began to share his wisdom with them and teach them how to see our Creator's good road. Creator's blessings rest on the poor, he said, the ones who have broken spirits. The good road from above is theirs to walk. Creator's blessing rests on the ones who walk a trail of tears, for he will wipe the tears from their eyes and comfort them. Creator's blessing rests on the ones who walk softly and in a humble manner. The earth, the land, and the sky will welcome them and will always be their home. Creator's blessing rests on the ones who hunger and thirst for wrongs to be made right again. Trust me when I tell you, they will eat and drink until they are full. Creator's blessing rests on the ones who are merciful and the ones who are kind to others. Their kindness will find its way back to them, full circle. Creator's blessing rests on the pure of heart, for they are the ones who are going to see the Great Spirit. Creator's blessing rests on the ones who make peace. It will be said of them, they are the children of the Great Spirit. Creator's blessing rests on the ones who are hunted down, the ones who are mistreated simply for doing what is right, for they are already walking the good road from above. Never forget that others are going to lie about you. They're going to speak out against you. They're going to look down on you with scorn. They're going to look down on you with contempt. And this will be because you're trying to walk the road with me. But stay strong. This is a sign that Creator's blessing is actually resting on you. So let your hearts be glad. In fact, jump for joy, for you will be honored in the spirit world above. For you are like the prophets of old, who were treated in the same way by your ancestors. This is such an important thing to remember. We talk about this so much, but it's always so absolutely vital to remember that, as Paul says, this thing we call Christianity is foolish, or it appears to be foolishness. It appears to be weakness. It appears to be all the things that we are always conditioned not to be seeking after. It is failure, it is loss, it is literal death. And so when somebody asks what it is that you do as a follower of Christ, to explain it like that does sound ridiculous. In Canada in the 21st century, many people know the backdrop of these stories, but Jesus speaks as powerfully now as he did back then, because that always starts with a corrective of what people have come to believe is the nature, the heart, and the desires of God. And within Christian circles, within North America, we have fallen back into the trap, and have for many years, of trying to define blessing, again, in the way that the world defines success. Blessing. There's a whole bunch of pushes out there, excuse me, that I am blessed. The most obvious ones that you're like, is I'm blessed with, and they'll list a whole bunch of material things. The whole idea that if you pray just the right way, you will get exactly what it is that you want. God becomes a, what do you call him? One-armed bandit, as he had the slang for a bit, like a ching, 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 ding, ding, ding kind of thing in the sky. And a lot like any of those sort of, what are they called? Slot machine. Thank you, Connor. Jeez. Like a slot machine in the sky. And just like a slot machine, sometimes you hit big, most of the times you don't. And so when Jesus lays out this at the beginning, these what we call the Beatitudes, the ethics of the kingdom, the heart of God, it doesn't sound like any of that. He's telling his earliest followers what it actually means, what it actually looks like to walk the good road. Who it is we are trying our absolute and comically best to imitate is someone who says, as we walk this, there will be much that'll come against us. Many voices externally and internally. But he always starts by correcting these ideas that sadly, even those who claim to follow him tend to fall back into. We are called to be weak. We are called to be humble. We are called to be exactly this. In the great blizzards of the world, we still try our best to show up. Now, I'm not saying that to make anybody who didn't come to church this morning feel bad. This is not a guilt trip. We're glad you're here. You're wonderful. That's not a guilt trip. But for all the stuff I ever end up getting to be involved in with all these churches across Canada, and it happened several times this past week too, usually one of the first two questions is, how big is your congregation? How many people? I can count on one hand how many times I've been asked, how deep is it? Brothers and sisters, these teachings of Jesus are so profoundly deep that 2,000 years later, we're still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to walk in it. We're still trying to imitate how radically he loved us and how creatively he explained the heart of his Father to us and how much he tried to set us all free in that time period from genuine physical, spiritual threats. In this day and age, we live much safer. We live better than any of our ancestors before. Now, better, technology, heat, food. Different, worse, isolation, depression. But when I say that the teachings of Jesus, the Beatitudes, are something that we should reflect upon as much as we possibly can, I say that as an antidote to the pressures that can come upon us to make us feel like our life here is worthwhile, to make us feel like, even if the faith is really important to us, that our faith is enough. Because we live constantly plagued with doubts and fears, insecurities, and threats. So what does Jesus do? He takes all the teachings of his religious age, not so different from our own, and he turns them on their head. Correction. He reveals that those teachings are actually the ones turned on their head, and he's trying to right us. He's trying to say that this is a path not of power. This is a path not where you're trying to convince others to think like you. This is not a path where you have to give a certain amount, do certain things, say certain words, and be a certain kind of person. From the prophets all the way up, Jesus just reiterates what these entire scriptures are all about. God doesn't need your money. God doesn't need your time, precious as it may be. The beautiful irony of this, and this is what I'll close with, is that God is so big, God is so powerful, that there's actually nothing God needs from any of you. He doesn't need money. As talented and strong and wise and beautiful as you all are, he doesn't need you. His story will be completed with or without you. It remains an invitation. Do you want to see the story I'm writing? Better understood, do you want to see the story I have written? And in that, he reminds us that it's not sacrifice he wants, it's humility. It's not money that he wants, it's people who love peace. People who are willing to step out of themselves, look at the needs of others, especially those that we have been taught or the world continues to view as not worthy of it, not desiring it. Because the more time we spend looking beyond ourselves, the more time we spend with the least of these, the more we get to see grace in action. There's no 1, 2, 3 of it. It's the very air we breathe. Because we will come to the conclusion, the more time we spend in grace, that we ourselves, for all of our right words, and they are good, for all the money that we give to various ministries, which is great, for all the various ways in which we are patient with our brothers and sisters, for all the ways that I can ride past cyclists on the road and not desire to run them over and feel really good about myself, for all the money we give away, for all the time, for all the energy, for all that sort of stuff, which is all good, which is all necessary, which is all valuable. Our overarching awareness, our overarching conclusion will be, I am not more worthy than you. I am not more deserving of God's grace than you. I hope, and the good road that Jesus talks about, is recognizing this is never and will never be about our worthiness or how good we are. What this is about is God's love. That's it. Poured out onto the deserving and undeserving alike. The rain, or in our case, the snow, falls on those who deserve it and want it. The snow also falls on those who don't want it. And that's where the snow becomes a beautiful lesson. We are all in this together. So the power of the Beatitudes remains just as strong nowadays, because it is always important to be reminded that if you truly want to walk God's way, walk it meek, be humble, strive for a quiet, contemplative, peaceful life. And as much as you're able to, be that. Help your neighbors, work hard without grumbling, be kind. If you find it hard to find words of kindness and support, remember the lesson we all learned all the way back in kindergarten. If you can't say something nice, shut up. If you can't, or are given the choice to believe in something good or believe in something bad, choose the good. If you're given the opportunity to help and serve, even if it's uncomfortable or takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit or makes you a little bit more tired, try. And when, not if, when you fail in all those areas, when you do utter the mean word, when you do choose your own desires over someone you know needs help, thank God. Because in those moments, you recognize that you are just as much need grace as anybody else. And remember the teachings of Christ. What makes this good news is that even, and maybe especially in those moments, you become aware that you have always been and will always be a recipient of grace. That is what this community is dedicated to. We walk in grace with each other. We reflect on that cross, which is foolishness to some, oppression to others. And we try to walk this higher road by loving mercy, acting with justice, and being humble, just like our Lord. Amen, amen, amen. Let's get out of here so we can get back where it's warm and safe. Hope you're well wherever you are. Bye.